Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today, we're going to be talking about the newest album from Brazy Da Bo, titled Habitual Lyrical. So about 8 months ago, I covered Alexander the Great 3, the newest album from Brazy Da Bo, a hip-hop MC from Baltimore that actually conducted himself with a certain amount of civility when he hit me up to cover his album, and hell, it was the middle of January, what else was I supposed to talk about? And I reviewed that album, and it was pretty good, decent enough from what I can remember of it, mostly holding up on better than average production to compensate for subject matter that didn't really impress or interest me all that much. But it was laid back, and it was chill, and it did have All Dogs Go to Heaven, which actually showed there was some rapping talent and creativity that he had if he had emotionally compelling subject matter. But you know what, I gotta be honest, I barely touched Alexander the Great 3 in months outside of that one song, and I'd struggle to remember any other cut from it, and I just re-listened to the album in preparation for this review. So fast forward to about now, Brazy Da Bo has a new album out, and it's titled Habitual Lyrical. Now this caught me off guard immediately, mostly because in looking for a word to describe this guy, lyrical was not one of them. He wasn't a bad rapper by any stretch, but his content never struck me as immediately complex, or lyrics being the most important element of his music. But on the flip side, he's also from Baltimore, and when I see songs called City on Fire, Pray for Baltimore in the middle of this album, I think back to the nightmare that happened there earlier this year. Well, maybe something inspired him, that could get interesting. Of course, he could also be sticking with the same regular subject matter, and the fact that this album is about 40 minutes for 15 songs did raise a little bit of concern with me. But hey, I was curious, and it's either this or Five Finger Death Punch or Disturbed, and you couldn't pay me to cover either of those. I have my dignity, especially when I have Slayer and Iron Maiden coming down the pipe, and I got their entire discographies to revisit. So, what does Habitual Lyrical manage to deliver here? Well, it's definitely more interesting than his last album, I can say that, and it's a definite improvement pretty much across the board, showing more personality, tighter bars, and a generally sharper presence behind the microphone. Will it be enough buzz to drive him towards more success, maybe in the mainstream? Kind of tricky to say, but Habitual Lyrical is definitely a step in the right direction, if a little bit of a small step, and I definitely can't complain about that. It's decent enough, I don't mind this. So let's start with the element that I've always liked the most about Brazy Da Bo. He's got a very solid ear for beats and production, and he works with producers that give him a shimmering, instantly melodic, and very memorable song. He's got good hooks. In this case, Yasmin Music, Chance McCullough, Tantu Beats, and Goon on the track all put together a cross-section of beats from the spacier side of old school boom bap to these gleaming trap-inspired bangers that focus more on the synth-heavy melodies than the bass, and they honestly sound a lot better for it. That pan flute on the intro, the great drum pickup on the cascading Immortal, the sticky as hell guitar line on Brazy and Her, and especially that sax interlude on City on Fire, Pray for Baltimore, paired up with a smoky reverb and bass on Don't Play. Those are some great moments here. Hell, that wall of fake strings on Baby Mama Problem was probably the best thing about that song, as it tried to lend an otherwise fairly ugly track a veneer of class that frankly didn't deserve. Of course, it's not all perfect. The choice for so much of this album to stick with glossy, high-end synths means that the bass beats can feel a little bit lacking and underweight, and some of the tones are just grating as hell that he chose, most notably on Champion, which features this slightly runny, high warble that features through the entire song. It makes you wish that the bass would just swallow it whole. A larger problem is that many of these songs feel like fragments, running just long enough for Brazy and maybe another rapper to hammer out some quick bars before that ending, and you get the feeling that he could have fleshed out the bars into longer stories with more punchlines, or maybe just another hook or two. There could have been more content here. Now granted, that might have required more detailed and intricate songwriting this record is really giving us. As much as I hope for more, the political track City on Fire, Pray for Baltimore is a complete tonal whiplash. It's a conscious rap track, but arguably a pretty damn solid one, and it doesn't fit the rest of the themes on this album at all, especially positioned square in the middle of the record where it sticks out like a sore thumb. Most of this album is focused on Brazy Da Bo flexing his lyrical skills as an MC, getting high, getting laid, often with your girl, and we'll come back to that. And then near the end of the album, we got a couple breakup tracks before a plan to move on to focus more on his craft. Of said breakup tracks, Meanwhile is by far the strongest. It actually gives him a chance to end things for because the feeling was just dying out when she wants to settle down for things moving too fast. I had been there, I get that situation, he plays it pretty well. It's an awkward sort of song, but in the good sort of awkward, and really a sign that if Brazy Da Bo wanted to become a more introspective, earnest MC in the vein of like a J. Cole, he could probably pull it off. I got faith in him. He certainly does it better than the whole screwing your girl vein of songs like Time Flies and Baby Mama Problem. The latter is played so sleazy that it doesn't so much come across as as shocking, but just trying way too hard. But again, the question of how much effort that Brazy Da Bo is putting into this album comes up in this record pretty starkly, and it ties into the main arc here. If he's got so many albums in the can just ready to go that he could retire and coast by pumping them out, it kind of contradicts the narrative of how hard he's working on said music, because why would he bother? Especially the material feels so unrefined, or some of these songs feel as unfinished as a few of these really do. Now, to give Brazy Da Bo some credit, his actual technical writing and delivery has really improved. He doesn't nearly rhyme words with themselves nearly as much as he used to, or hype his own material so gratuitously, instead of relying on punchlines that actually do stick out a bit on some pretty solid flows. He's not especially a visceral rapper, one that will grab you with huge personality, and there are certain flows that he has that work a lot better than others, particularly that rollicking flow he has on To Infinity that has some great groove to it. He should really use that a lot more often. And while I would argue that C-Raye kind of steals the show on This That for being a bit more forceful, placing Brazy Da Bo near the forefront of the mix does place him in a potent light. It definitely shows his improvement against YM on Don't Play, which he frankly blows out of the water. Of course, that all relies on him sounding engaged, because on the interlude All I Wanna, it features more like a Yasmin music showcase for the producer, as Brazy Da Bo, he just sounds kind of half asleep. And as I've said before, if he doesn't care, why should I? But in the end, I will say this is a modest improvement, but I do think Habitual Lyrical could have used a little bit more polish and a tighter edit to really come together well. Many of these songs feel on the precipice of really having some hard-hitting moments that really get to me, but are just a bit too short and lacking in consistent flows to hit harder for me. Now, I do think Brazy Da Bo is aiming higher, and all the more for it, but I reckon this album could use a little bit more polish to define his strengths a little bit more clearly and what direction he wants to take his content. For now, again, a lot of this production really does work for me, which pushed this to a light 6 out of 10 and a recommendation, but a qualified one. If you're looking for a reasonably talented and improving MC, keep your eyes out for Brazy Da Bo. I can definitely see promise going ahead. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or any other albums coming out that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.